Welcome back to the Monday Mashup, the show we bring you on the upper tier on YouTube each and every week. Head over there, drop your subscribe and bell notification button. As always, joining me tonight for our show, my partner in crime, DJ Dazzler, MC Mystic Mac, the man who has been springing the tunes onto me all weekend from the Jeep. How we doing, my man?
I'm all good, brother Niall. How are you, pal?
Good. Certainly a very interesting weekend in football between fixtures and news and everything else that's going on. So we're going to get into the show anyway. As always, if you want to contact the show, we're on Gmail, the Upper Tier Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, the Upper Tier. We're on YouTube, the Upper Tier, and for audio versions of the show, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Let's get into this. Let's do a rundown of the fixtures for starting off Friday night, 8 o'clock. Brighton 1, Crystal Palace 1. A man that we fondly, affectionately talk about on this show, Conor Gallagher, popped up with another good goal.
Another good goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
They did well to get out of there with Anton, didn't they? Palace.
They did, very much so.
You know, Jack Butland had a pretty good game, in fairness to him. I know the goal goes in off Ward and stuff like that, but I don't think there's a lot you can do about it. And obviously there's the penalty save and stuff like that. So he's building his reputation back up, Jack Butland, isn't he? I mean, he was a kid that when he was at Birmingham City, there was massive talk around him when he was on the way to the World Cup. I think it was 2018, wasn't it? Mm. And then he's just kind of gone into exile, you know, over the last few years. But he's back now at Palace, and Vieira obviously seen something he liked in that FA Cup game and decided to give him a role. I have to say, I really like the boy Vicente Guaita. I think he's a good keeper. And that's not to say, you know, Jack Butland's not. I do like Jack Butland, so I think it's a tough decision for Vieira going forward. But I have to say, I do like Butland. I like both of them, in fairness, so I'm on to a non-loser here, really.
It's a good headache for Vieira to have. I have to say, on Friday night, when I heard Jack Butland's name mentioned, I had to take a pause and stop and go, are we talking the Jack Butland now? Or is there some other Jack Butland that has come through? But no, the same guy, yeah.
He kind of flattered to the sea for a little bit, didn't he? He was at Stoke and didn't really get game time there, and then ended up at Palace, you know, and you're kind of thinking, like, what's going to happen here? He's come in behind Guaita and stuff. You know, obviously confidence is key for goalkeepers, and he looks like a guy who's starting to get the confidence back in himself. You know, he's a big couple of games behind him now at Crystal Palace. It's only got to be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Lunchtime game on Saturday. Man City 1, Chelsea 0. Smashing goal from Kevin De Bruyne. It kind of felt in the game, I don't know whether you felt watching it, it was kind of like, it felt there was a goal coming all the time, didn't it? Like every time they attacked, it felt like they could score. Chelsea always felt like they were hanging in there. And I kind of felt in the game as well. It kind of felt like the game at the Bridge as well.
Yeah, I kind of feel, you know, and we spoke about this recently, I kind of feel that Chelsea against some of the bigger sides like that look and feel like they're a little bit toothless at times, don't they? Whereas City kind of felt the opposite. City felt like if they really put their hammer down and wanted it, they could open you up like a can of beans at any stage, you know, and they keep building, and it's waves and waves of pressure. And, you know, we've seen it in the past when football teams create that kind of pressure, inevitably goals come.
Yeah, I also felt with Tuchel as well. I felt his timing of the substitutions was kind of a little bit poor. His in-game management again. Not to mention that I felt his starting lineup was a little bit off as well. The starting lineup gave me a kind of a feeling of more damage control than it did of a team that was going out to keep itself in a title race. Yeah. And the big shock to me was Mason Mount.
I don't think, and as strange as it sounds, and listen, people are going to disagree with me, I don't think he believed he could win it. You know, and that's scary if you're a Chelsea fan, you know, because going into the weekend, you guys were in second place, you know, Chelsea. Excuse me. And for them to go in against the teams that were ahead of them and think we can't beat these, and that's kind of what it looked like, you know. It's not a great place to be in. mind you, with some of the places our own sides are in, I think I'd take second.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Burnley and Leicester was called off. I suppose before we move on from the Chelsea game, I suppose in terms of their title race is now ran. Would you think?
it's going to be so difficult for Chelsea to get into this again.
Yeah.
You know, they'd have to do something very similar to what City have done and hope that City dropped an awful lot of points.
Yeah, and the fact that now they don't have games that are within their own control because they've played them twice in the league now. So
yeah, like 12 wins on the bounce is what City have just done.
Yeah.
Could you see this Chelsea team doing that?
No, I think the loss of Chilwell and Reece James, I think, is massive for them in terms of creativity, and I think all the other crap surrounding Lukaku, and I think all the contractual stuff that they're dealing with at the back as well. I think they're just, how would I call it, distracted, for lack of a better word.
There's an awful lot going on at the club for a club that hasn't got a lot going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the key thing for them is they're going to have to sort out their house a little bit because we have the Champions League returning fairly soon, and they're going to need to be cleared.
And you know, like we've often spoke about El Marina. She's a bit of a diamond in the background. She's gonna have her work cut out, you know, isn't she? She's got a left back and possibly a right back to get in as well. I bet you they're looking down at Brighton now, thinking, "Jeez, if we hadn't sold this boy Tariq Lamptey down here, we could have put him straight in here to replace Reece James." Excuse me. And then you've obviously the boy Livramento, who's on loan at Southampton, but now he's out of action as well, so he's got a really bad injury.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very tough. Very, very tough. I seen them linked with Levin Kurzawa from PSG, but the French football authority, let's say, reckon that's a no-go because the relationship seemed to be very poor between himself and Thomas Tuchel when he was there. He didn't play an awful lot of football under Tuchel, and apparently the two didn't get on. So this is somebody apparently making a link, and the link's not really there because Tuchel and him don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, I think when you're a team that's struggling a little bit that way as well, the media find it very easy to link you with literally everyone under the sun, and it's kind of distracting as well because it's. I haven't heard any. I mean, the most solid link I heard them with is they're still after the boy Koundé. But again, I just don't know how that's going to hit her out as well. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all this window if they don't sign anyone, to be honest.
I think he's going out looking for a left back, though, isn't he? I mean, like at the minute, the other talk was that possibly, excuse me, possibly they paid Leon a compensation fee to take their own Emerson back. That was also in the pipework. So they may leave that till lastminute.com a couple of days out from the window and say, listen, we can't get anyone in here. Leon, here's 2-3 million. We want Emerson back. And then Leon go and reinvest that in a loan fee until the end of the season for a different left back or something like that. You know, I don't know. That's
yeah, there's a lot going on there at the moment for Tuchel.
Absolutely.
And not a whole lot of it is kind of football related. It's kind of like there's a lot of dynamics going on there that he's trying to juggle at the moment.
Yeah.
Burnley and Leicester was postponed, obviously due to CV. Newcastle won, Watford won.
Yeah, this was a bit upsetting, if I'm honest. I went with there was 5 of us left in the fantasy football, and I went with Newcastle. I thought Newcastle would be solid enough at home. They should have won the game. They had enough chances, you know. They should have won the game. They did an 88 minute. A boy we spoke about on the preview, João Pedro popped up with a great header, by the way.
Yeah, I WhatsApped you straight away.
Yeah, that's right. This kid's going to be very, very exciting over the next couple of years. I don't think you probably saw the best of him on Saturday because he's kind of he likes to go on a mazy with the ball and stuff like that. Close control is excellent. He's quick. He's probably quicker with the ball at his feet than he is without it. But to score the goal in the manner he did, you know, I was watching it on Sky Sports News Unfold, and Michael Dawson, I think, was watching it, and he was saying, you know, this kid's put his head in where most lads wouldn't put their boot to get this goal. He says, this is a really top finish. He says, and it's really brave. He said, not something we've necessarily looked at today's younger footballers and said, Jesus, that's he's gone heavy in there, you know. But I think Newcastle are going to have a look at themselves, because if they're going to get out of this, the mentality has to change. They went 1-0 up in a game that they were dominating.
Yeah.
You know, Sam Maximus scores a great goal, comes inside in the right peg, whips it back into the front stick. Usually I'd say, you know, where's the keeper and stuff like that. But, excuse me, to be honest, I don't even think I could blame Ben Foster. I mean, it passed him before he hits it. You know, he struck it really, really cleanly.
Yeah.
But like there's so much possession. They got so many crosses in the box, corners, throw-ins, everything. They just got everything into the box.
Yeah.
But when they went the goal up, they just took their foot off the pedal. Yeah. You know, it was like there was fear there. It looked like they were riddled with fear. And you just thought, go on ahead, keep your head down, keep going, get a second, get a third, put this to bed, you know. And they didn't, and they let Watford back into it. It's, you know, when we look at the points at the end of the season, could be a big point for Watford come the end.
Yeah, I was looking at the table. A win for them would have brought them up around 16th, I think, pending other results or something like that for Newcastle as well.
17th.
Yeah, 17th or 16th or something like that. Pending results. And I thought as well, the boy Wood that had come in on had been signed. Like the amount of headers he kept on putting off target or over the bar or something like that. For a guy who was a header kind of specialist, really, you know what I mean? He had a poor first showing.
I do think, and we spoke about it again in the preview, I think the idea in theory is working really, really well. Like, it's first day at the office. You have Kieran Trippier down that right-hand side and Ryan Fraser. Fraser looks like he's going to give the ball out to Trippier on the overlap. And when the defender goes, Fraser puts it in himself. When the defender doesn't go, he gives it to Trippier. Trippier gets the ball in. I still think, I know we didn't get on the weekend, I still think Wood is going to score some good goals for Newcastle. And he could be, you know, the difference between them staying up and going down. I do believe they need a couple more goals. I think they need something from that kind of behind the striker role, you know, that number 10, something creative. I know Newcastle have been mentioned in the same breath, God help them, of Anthony Martial. Maybe it's something like that, you know, I wouldn't wish it on anybody if I'm honest, but maybe it's something like that they need some sort of a player that can pop up, because we know Martial's record at United, you know, his goal record is decent enough. His aptitude is a different thing, you know, and his aptitude and his attitude. But I mean, if you get him on the pitch and give him chances, I think he'll get you a couple. You know,
how might be able to solve that if he was playing him? I think Anthony Martial would be much happier if he was playing week in, week out. I think that's the frustration behind it.
110%. Yeah, and I think if you play him in behind the likes of Chris Wood, where Wood can, you know, do a job of pinning in centre backs and stuff like that, you can get Martial around the edge of that 18-yard line, 1-2 touch, and then boom, let him pull the trigger. He's a very, very good finisher at times. Listen, I think they need more, Newcastle, but I don't think they're done in this window already, let's be honest.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
Next up, Norwich 2. Norwich 2, Everton 1. The gavel falls on our friend Rafa, and we'll be talking about it a little bit later in the show. But this
buster if I ever saw one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did say in the preview as well, this was one to avoid. We called it.
Yeah, I think we called it was one to avoid based on the fact that we were thinking Everton plus Norwich to score, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, it goes the other way. I'd love to know what price Norwich were to win and both teams to score. They'd have had to been 6 or 7 to 1. Absolutely have to.
I'd say so.
But in fairness to them, it was well deserved. They were the better team, you know. They pressed really, really high. Their tempo was excellent. The boys, I think it's Josh Sargent, came back into the team. I think he'd been out for a couple of weeks. His partner had a baby and stuff like that. But he came back in and he was very, very good. He's looked reasonably good for Norwich this season. When he's been given game time and stuff like that, when he's been able to get in a role of having a couple of games under his belt, you know, good player.
His partner had a baby. Roy Keane be having none of that. Roy Keane be having none of that. Your partner had a baby and you go missing. Wolves 3, Southampton 1. Ward-Prowse again, but your boy comes up with the goods. Adama.
Well, my boy Daniel Podence came up with the goods.
Yeah.
That's my boy. The boy Adama, listen, you know, the sun shines on a dog's arse every now and again, doesn't it? And that's basically what happened on Saturday. I don't think it's going to add too many zeros to his transfer fee when he eventually heads to Spurs, you know. But he's really got the snowball effect at the minute, hasn't he? Bruno Largi. A lot of good football at Wolves at the minute. Podence, as we said, Trincao, Jimenez getting back in the score sheet, albeit just a penalty. You know, they're tight enough at the back. Only beaten by a James Ward special.
Yeah.
You know, you see him kind of lining up to take that, and you just think he's way too far out for this to be working.
Yeah.
Approaches it with you know, a side foot, and then it's all that wacky swerve that, you know, comes in at the last minute. And obviously Jose Sa having a great season at Wolves couldn't get near it. And you can see as it goes past him, he's kind of looking, going, what was that? That was like something out of Harry Bleeding Potter, the way that thing moved like that. You know what I mean? That was
FIFA 99.
Absolutely, yeah. It was,
Big win for Wolves. I remember looking at it at full time and I was thinking, within the table and stuff like that's a big win for Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it moves them back into that potential European conversation.
Yeah, and again, you know, like Wolves are a club that I wouldn't be surprised to see them do some business this month. You know, I know their squad's not massive, and I think, you know, if there was possibilities out there for Wolves, I think they would look at it and look at what Bruno Largi's done so far and go, you know what, let's give this guy a couple of euro to try and keep this thing ticking over and compete with the teams around them that have been bringing players in, you know, because I mean the direct competition at the minute is Aston Villa, and they're bringing in Philippe Coutinho and Luca Digne and talking about, you know, he's Basuma and stuff like that. So if you want to roll with that, that's fine, but you've got to be able to bring some people through the door as well, especially if, like we say, maybe Adama's going to leave the building. Yeah. Do they look to maybe take somebody from Spurs in the deal? Do we see Dele Alli heading there, maybe playing in behind Jimenez or the boy Brian Gill, the Spanish boy? He hasn't really hit the headlines at all, has he? No. Maybe we see him, you know, take a wander down the road to Wolves and till the end of the season or something like that, see if we can get him some game time maybe. I don't know, there's options I suppose there for Wolves.
Yeah, Brian Hill is a real good shout actually, because we were only talking last week about Wolves and they need a guy who might produce a few more goals, and like with him and struggling slightly. Yeah. So that could be a great show, and it could be refreshing for him to actually get some consistent football in there that he hasn't had at Spurs.
Absolutely.
But yeah, good shout there.
And it's an attacking kind of a side you'd go into at Wolves. So like attacking sides are going to get the best out of attacking players. You know, They really, really are.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's time for, as you said, to back the manager and Wolves to show just a little bit more ambition in terms of that conversation about Europe. Yeah, absolutely. The 5:30 game, Aston Villa 2, Man United 2. The plan seemed to be going really, really well. As Man United fans, you've been on the show a number of times talking about what you'd like to see, Elanga in the team, not necessarily Maguire there, players being picked based on performance and on form and all that kind of stuff. Bruno taking the captaincy armband, which doesn't seem a bad thing at all. And the next thing, it kind of slightly implodes. And I think it was just the way that the game the way it went. I think on another day, you wouldn't have felt as bad with a draw, except it felt like a loss.
Listen, when you're 2 goals up with 75 minutes on the clock, you're almost on the bus with those points in your pocket sitting back down, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it was an absolute kick in the stones for Villa to grab, you know, a couple of late goals and kill it off. But I think you're right. Like, I think there was plenty of positives from it. To see Maguire on the bench was super. It really was. Like, you know, he was there, he was available, and Ralph said, "Nah, you know what? I'm all right with the 2 boys I have here."
And rightly so.
Yeah, and I think even, you know, he had Jones on the bench as well. I'm assuming, or maybe I'm making an assumption that I shouldn't, but if there was a change needed to be made, I don't know whether he'd have brought Jones on ahead of Maguire, you know. But yeah, Bruno, playing off the front and bringing kind of the energy and arriving late again, like we saw initially from Bruno. I think the energy we got from Alanga and stuff like that. I think there was lots of pluses. I think the big minus is obviously throwing away the 2-goal lead and dropping 2 points, because we're not in a position where we can drop points, especially when we've been given a 2-goal lead. I mean, the first goal is an absolute gift from Emiliano Martinez. We're not used to seeing him do that, but when you get a gift like that, you've got to really make sure that you nail it home. Yeah. Bruno took his goal very, very well. The second one, it's a great finish in off the other side of the bar.
Great movement.
Really, really good. First touch is good, second touch is just clinical. But I mean, there's still an awful lot. There's a shroud of controversy around that United team at the minute, and you look at it obviously, and you've got Sean McTominay who are out; they were both suspended. You've got Ronaldo who's injured. You've got Maguire on the bench. You've got Rashford who had a knock, and
we're gonna get into some of this a little bit later.
There's an awful lot of stuff.
I did want to raise a point that you had raised previously, and I thought it was nice to see it. The boy Alanga up front, it was nice to see a player playing on the left side who has a left foot. And I thought he really excelled from that point of view, because he didn't have to keep on checking back inside and all. He could go the other way, and it seemed a bit more natural. And I think you're right. You had called it that this is a guy with a big future and stuff like that.
He was. We brought him on in the FA Cup game against Villa. He was very, very good in an extremely short space of time, and not necessarily that he created an awful lot, but his energy and his work rate. We were one. I think it was 89 minutes gone or something like that, and he went and won a corner for us. Kind of through a little bit of his own endeavour and stuff like that. Went and got the corner, played it off the Villa line, and just turned to the crowd and went, "Come on!" And I just thought, all right. Kid has a bit of sauce here, and I want that. I want the kid who's willing to turn around and go, "Hey, we need a bleeding dig out here. Get behind us, will you?
Get us over the line,
or help us suck this ball over the goal line." That's always been the thing in the Stretford end. We've always sucked that ball home for United when they were knocking on the door, but hasn't happened as we know it can in recent years. But it was great to see the kid, and that's why I kind of mentioned him. And I said, it'd be great to see him. And I think obviously Ralph saw what I saw and went, this kid has to start. When you look at what Rashford had done in the home game with Villa in the FA Cup, I think if you'd have started with Rashford again, it's a really bad message. Yeah, it's a really poor message it's sending out to the rest of the boys. Come in, don't give a toss. Walk around, strop, roll your eyes, drop your shoulders, do the whole shooting match, but I'll start you again.
Well, it's been the biggest problem at United, hasn't it? They've been rewarding poor performance for way too long.
Yeah, and mediocrity. We've been celebrating mediocrity because at the minute, I know a lot of fans probably won't want to hear it, but top 4 is mediocrity. You're not winning that in top 4. You're gaining a seat at the table, but are you a winner? Not in my eyes.
So imagine the imaginable if it was 6, 7, or 8.
I think it could very well be 6th. Could very well be 6th. I don't think we'll finish any lower than 6th, but I think it could absolutely be 6th. Yeah. That's Europa League. That's giving up your Thursday nights. That's games on a Sunday. 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock on Monday nights. That's hell on earth.
I think United. I think you'd be better off being 8th, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, and missing out completely. Absolutely.
At least it gives you a free run at the league next season, if nothing else.
And it's a strange thing. I think you would be in a much better position to go and win something based on the fact you were out of European football completely. Listen, if you offered me 6th or 8th right now, I'd happily take 8 over 6th. Because that's no football in Kazakhstan on a Thursday at, with 14 people behind the goal at 5:30. Nah, you're all right. That's not football, thanks.
Yeah. Let's move on to Sunday's fixtures. The 2 o'clocks. West Ham 2, Leeds 3. This was a proper shock for me. Jack Harrison popping up out of nowhere with a hat-trick.
I've got 2 major things to say about this game. The first thing is this game saved my ass in last man standing, because it was 5 was left. 3 went with Newcastle, so we all got knocked out on the Saturday, and the last 2 boys standing had West Ham until Leeds turned them over. So now we're back on the reset to 5.
Nice.
So that was a blessing. The thing I have to say about Jack Harrison, and some people are gonna look at me in a strange light when I say this. It's remarkable how when he got rid of that stupid fucking ponytail, all of a sudden he got a hat-trick, isn't it? Finished playing with his top knot. Fuck's sake. He got a decent haircut and he was able to score a few goals. So he should have sorted out sooner, Jack. Fucking hell.
It. Bielsa in the changing room with the razor out.
Yeah, you remember back in the day, wasn't it? Who was it? Passarella, Daniel Passarella. Remember he wouldn't let Redondo play for Argentina with the long hair. Yeah. Told him, shave it, you're not playing. Redondo told him, I'm not shaving. He went, that's all right, you're not playing. Yeah. And he pulled the plug on him. Yeah, I'd have been a Daniel Passarella, absolutely. Sort out that blade and burn it, will you, kid? Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's banging them in. Listen, we know Harrison has lots of ability. He's obviously ex-Man City. He's come from that academy and stuff like that. Leeds have gone out and paid a nice few pounds from him. So they've seen something in him. He's got quality. You know, you see the way he takes the goals the weekend. Really, really good young player. Probably one that, you know, may struggle to get close to an England team, but we might be able to try and get him under a granny rule or something and give him a game for the boys in green, you know. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, is he going to get in ahead of Foden and Grealish?
No.
Come and play international football somewhere nice, Jack. You know, nice bright green jersey.
Somewhere where you'll be loved. A decent Leeds fan base, plenty of history.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
What did you make of West Ham that final minute chest instead of header? What was the boy thinking?
Yeah, and you know, like, we're big fans of his.
We love
him. Really, it's just one of those. I'd say afterwards you went, oh shit, why didn't I head it? But then if he heads it, maybe he thinks, oh, why didn't I chest it? I don't know whether he thought. I don't know what he thought actually. You know.
I'm thinking if he heads that ball in, and we're in a transfer window, that's another 3 to 5 million on your valuation straight away.
Maybe he's thinking the signing on fee, all right. But I mean, he scored a good goal. Yeah. You know, he scored a very good goal.
He's banging form, isn't he?
Absolutely banging form. I had captained him in my fantasy football team the week before because he did double game week. And he came up trumps for me, obviously. And I never changed my captain the other day. So it was nice to see him getting back on the score sheet and bail me out a little bit. But the double would have helped me even more if he could have stuck that in as well, you know. Yeah, but yeah, it would say it's a blip for West Ham. But you know, hopefully it's nothing more than that.
Massive game coming up at the weekend in terms of top 4. They play United, don't they, at the weekend? So that's going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah.
The other 2 o'clock, because we had no 4:30.
Heading back to Old Trafford, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The North London derby obviously was called off, so the other game of the weekend at 2 o'clock, Liverpool 3, Brentford 0. More or less straightforward. I thought the first half was a little bit lackluster. I thought they allowed Brentford a couple of moments to give them a little bit of hope. Alisson was a little bit wayward in his distribution first half, which is unusual for him. But I think once the goal went in from Fabinho, I think it was kind of Brentford would have to open up then. They'd have to try and come out and get something, and that would play into our hands.
I thought that was a great finish from the Ox, I have to say.
Yeah.
He's not known for his headers. It's a great header, you know.
It was a great ball in as well from Andy Robinson, in fairness.
Yeah, it was. It's probably something we're used to seeing from the opposite side of the pitch, but Robertson just reminding everybody, you know, he's well able to do it as well. Yeah, I think it was nice and comfortable for Liverpool, you know. They put obviously the FA Cup game behind them and just went out and played how they wanted to play, and they moved the ball a bit quicker and stuff like that, I think, and got the ball wider. and got balls in the box and stuff like that. They didn't allow, I think Brentford would have wanted them to try and play through them, but I think they tried to play around them a little more than that, which suited Liverpool, and Brentford found quite difficult,
Yeah, very difficult for them to get Tony into the game as well when you're surrendering that much possession.
Yeah.
Right, let's get into some of these hot topics. Let's start with nowhere else to start but the blue side of Merseyside. The gavel comes down on Rafael Benitez's reign as Everton manager. Some would say it came down nearly the day he signed as the manager. Very, very difficult appointment. I'm not too sure what the club was thinking.
I have a massive, massive issue with this, if I'm honest. I don't believe there was any opportunity for Benitez to succeed there at Everton. When you go in to manage a club, you've got three possibilities as a manager coming in. You come in with some sort of attachment with the club, which gets you a bonus in the bank with the fans. You come in with no attachment to the club and you kind of play on that level playing field, Or you come in like Rafa did with the odds leveraged against you because you have a history with our bitter rivals.
Baggage.
And he was doomed to fail from the beginning. He really, really was. I know in the early weeks things went very well for them and stuff like that, but with the squad Everton have, it's a poor squad. It's lacking so much, You've seen, obviously, they've tried to make a few changes now in January. We've spoken about it previously. The fullbacks both needed looking at. Digne's obviously gone. I think Seamus Coleman's probably not a million miles away from the exit door, if not the bench at this stage. The boy Patterson will be playing games very soon. You don't know where the kind of creativity is. There's not enough goals in the team. It's a poor Everton side. It really, really is. But I just think the owners of the club need to take a look at themselves, and they need to understand that, you give a guy a fair chance and he might do you a job, but you give a guy a job like that and he hasn't got a chance,
Yeah, I think he came out himself and he said it was such a difficult task. He says not only had we to try and get results, but we also had to try and win over the hearts of people. And I was kind of thinking, yeah, that's one side of it. But the reality is 1 win in 13 is unacceptable at that level as a manager.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what's going on in the stands or on the terraces. I mean, the team has to be put out there to perform in such a way. And I know there was kind of internal petulance and stuff there, like there was players getting dropped and players being brought in and not being played.
Yeah, and don't forget, they've just gotten rid of their sporting director, Marcel Brands, as well.
Yeah,
so, I mean, Everton is a club in turmoil at the minute.
Yeah, but he changed a number of positions as well. Didn't he change the medical side of things? And he changed a number of positions.
Which is now going to be catered specifically to his needs as manager.
Yeah.
And now he's out the door. So what do we do? Do we change it all back again? Do we keep what's in there now? But that's down to the ownership of the football club. They've allowed all that. Yeah. They haven't turned around and said, no, we're not going to do that. You can work within limitations here, but we can't give you that. They've just given them over 30 million for 2 fullbacks.
Yeah.
Knowing that Digne was heading out the door and you were going to get X amount of money for him. I think they paid 16 for Patterson and 17 for Michaelenko. So, that's 33 million. They've got 5 for, or they've got 25 for Digne. So they've almost balanced the books there. They're only 8 million out of pocket. They've got 2 young, new, exuberant, vibrant fullbacks. But I mean, you do all that, and then you have to get a new manager in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, if looking at the list of who they're looking at, it's not gonna be all lollipops and rainbows at Goodison for quite a while, if you're asking me.
Yeah, well, the list of what they're looking for. I mean, the front runners at the moment are Roberto Martinez and Wayne Rooney. And the question on both is, I mean, Martinez didn't leave there exactly with the bubbles flown and everyone happy on the parade. I mean, he was kind of ousted somewhat as well. And now the talk is he might go back in. In terms of Wayne Rooney, I mean, is Wayne Rooney going to go back in there? Are we going to see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer Part 2? Or would it work out slightly differently? I don't know. I think Wayne has a bit of nous about him, but I think it might be, that kind of Lampard effect. It might be a bit too soon.
I have to say, Rooney is doing a phenomenal job at Derby County. Derby are now minus their 21 points, will be in the top half of the league.
Yeah.
Which is huge. They got themselves off the bottom on Saturday with another win. He only, at the start of the season, he had 11 senior first team players. So he's had to build this squad from nothing with very little money, signing guys that he knew were maybe over the hill, but with a little bit of experience compared to the youth he was obviously going to bring through and stuff like that. He's doing a really, really good job. They play a reasonable brand of football. They're miserly at the back, and they nick goals. I wouldn't say they're unlike a David Moyes team. So maybe Wayne learned a few things working under Moisey, I think it'd be a great fit, to be honest with you. But I don't see him leaving Derby mid-season. I think if you're going to see anything, you'll see Big Dunk till the end of the season. You'll get the pride and the passion from Big Dunk, and he'll get the lads wound up to the hilt, and he'll get performances out of them, and they'll win games for him. I think the best thing for Everton, excuse me, could be get Dunk into the end of the season, appoint Rooney, and then maybe sell the two boys up front and use that as your building block. You're probably talking somewhere in the 100+ million for the two boys, aren't you? Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin.
Do you think so?
I would think so.
Would you?
I think so. I think you get 50 to 60 for both of them.
I'd be shocked.
Nah, I think you'd solidly get that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be shocked. One is a little bit injury prone, and the other one I think is a pretender. I'm not too sure. I think people would see through that. I think if someone offered me 80 for both of them, I'd rip the hand off them and I'd pay the Uber for it on the way.
Oh, you're short-changed yourself there, man. Big time.
I'd be very, very surprised. Even in the current inflated market, I'd be very shocked. Look at Richarlison's numbers. Richarlison's numbers are shocking for a player of his level. Absolutely shocking. And Calvert-Lewin, when's the last time you had a run of 10 or 12 games out of Calvert-Lewin without a problem?
Listen, that's the issue with Calvert-Lewin, but don't tell me the likes of Arsenal or Newcastle wouldn't throw big bucks at him. He's not going
to be much good to him in the medical room.
He'll get through a medical. Listen, we've seen Owen Hargreaves get through.
No, I mean in a medical room when he gets there. I'm not talking about passing a medical.
I know, but I'm saying to you, at that stage, the finance side of it's done. He's already cost you 50 to 60.
But that's why I'm wondering whether someone would pull the trigger at that price.
I think they would. I think Arsenal would. I think a lot of clubs overlook people's injury record and think, oh, maybe they're not treating them right. Maybe if we get him here and we train him differently and stuff, kind of like the scenario which what you've seen Lukaku at Inter. Inter brought him in, changed the way he ate, changed the way he trained. He was fitter, sharper, healthier than he's ever been. And I think that'd be the hope with a lot of these sports science nutritionists and physiotherapists and stuff like that. They'll probably see a player and think, oh, maybe he's being mismanaged rather than he's a crock.
If I'm sitting at that desk signing that check, I ain't signing it for that amount for either of them. I think there's much better value out there in the market. Much better value. I
have to say I like the boy Richarlison. I really do. I think he's probably looking around there though, and he's going, who the fuck am I playing with here? Who's going to give me a fucking dig out? He's
been looking around there now for a long, long time, and his stats are pony.
I don't think his stats are that bad. And I think, if we're just going to isolate players on their stats, I would look at Richarlison and I would think this kid can play football. I wouldn't just go, his stats are shit, I won't bother having a look at him. I think if you do that, you're Yeah, or vice versa. If you just look at the stats and don't watch him play, or if you watch him play and don't look, I think it takes.
Well, I've
it
done
takes
both. I've done both. I mean, what does he produce? I know they've had a torrid season this season, but what did he produce last season?
Probably got
Tell me a Richarlison moment from last season that you remember or that you can think of.
I think there
I
was
can't
lots
think
of
of it.
moments, but we're not big Everton fans either. Don't forget.
No,
You know,
but
we're
I'm
not
not, look,
tuning into
I'm
the
not
day
going
every week.
against the guy at all. Like, I'm not coming from that point of view. It's not because I'm a red.
There's been big, his name's been mentioned big time with Barcelona and PSG and stuff like that. But I don't think your name even gets mentioned in that conversation unless you're a serious footballer,
Well, the PSG link, we know that is. I mean, if there's 3 tiers to the subs bench, he's on the 3rd tier because he's not breaking into that PSG side in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
No, well, I mean, when Mbappe goes to Madrid, he might come in off the left-hand side.
Then Poch better take that job at United. That's all I'll say. Because that's for me, that's for him to reach that level in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Even parking his stats and looking at his performances, I would be highly shocked. I think he's petulant. I think he goes overboard. I think he's a dirty player, and I think he doesn't offer up anything in terms of that ball of talent that would be in there and stuff like that. I don't think he would add anything to a Messi or a Neymar whatsoever.
No, but I don't think you're being very fair to him. Like, he's playing in a really, really poor Everton side. Any of their good moments come from him, Is it his fault that when he looks around, he goes, I can't fucking do this with any of these boys here?
Yeah, but if you look at the opportunity he's had. I mean, last season Ancelotti was in there. He had James Rodriguez around him and everything and all. And what happened?
James Rodriguez, who played about 7 games and then was wearing a dress the rest of the fucking season.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying to you is, if you're sitting at Man United at the moment and Richarlison comes up available for 50, 60 million, are you taking him at United? If PSG want him, are you taking him at United?
Regardless if PSG want him or not, I'm absolutely having a look at him for 50 to 60, 100%.
Would you? I'm surprised at that now. I wouldn't.
Well, if you're telling me he's gonna probably produce something like 10 to 15 league goals and create assists, I fucking think it's 50 or 60 well spent now.
How many seasons are? I don't know what his stats are like now. I haven't looked at his stats today. Do you reckon that will be his stats from last season? I don't think so.
I certainly think in the last 2 seasons he'll have gotten 10 to 15, one of them plus assists.
I'd be shocked. We must have a look at it after the show, but I'd be shocked because I just don't remember. From my point of view, I can't recall a whole lot at all.
There was lots of periods where he went on, goals, sprays and stuff like that, but he maybe didn't. He maybe didn't maintain it for long enough, But he went, scored a couple, got another one, and stuff like that. He's a very good header of the ball. Can take a free kick, moves the ball well at his feet. He's got good balance and stuff like that. Can use both feet. I like him, I have to say.
You have me interested now. I'll go back and I'll look at those stats and I'll say, and I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it's very few and in between and very far. I think he spends more time acting the pony on the pitch than he does anything else. So, but yeah, we'll have a look at it anyway. Interesting one, but yeah, I'd be shocked if that was the valuation at this stage.
But I think if they could get that out of it, that's the start of a rebuild.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's exactly what he would want.
And if the owner threw in 50 and they got 50 each for the 2 boys, that's 150 to say, off you go. Yeah. Let's get the ball rolling here. You've only lost 2 players. Let's get 5 in, 30 million ahead, and let's get the ball rolling,
Yeah. Absolutely. And especially with Rooney being there at the moment at Derby, it's very frustrating for him at the moment financially. I mean, there's player contracts being cancelled at the moment. There's talk of players being shipped out and stuff like that. So whatever bit of talent that he has there at the moment.
Even worse, there's talk of fucking Mike Ashley buying the team. Jesus, if that's not out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised the 50 million wasn't looked at instead of being dismissed so quickly for a team that's in serious financial trouble. For a guy to
but
rock up.
it's knowing what way he's going to go in and destroy it like he did at Newcastle, you know. He's a degenerate. He'd sell his granny for, or swap her for one of them giant fucking mugs of tea.
Look, based on the financial situation that's there at the moment, plenty before him have gone in and destroyed it somewhat, haven't they?
Yeah, listen, I think that, you know, I always listen to that to find out how the owners passed the fit and proper test. And you just think, how did half of these lads get through here? These are all fucking degenerates.
Yeah, the fit and proper is such a loose thing, isn't it, when they're looking at these things? But obviously, Mike Ashley, he's looking for somewhere to pin those Sports Direct banners.
He has a load of loose ones after St. James's Park, doesn't he?
Yeah, they left with him in the trailer, yeah. I wanted to touch on this issue with CV that's coming out at the moment, the variant, obviously, because we obviously don't mention it on the videos for obvious reasons, but a lot of games being postponed at the moment. And there was a bit of trouble at the weekend over the North London derby. Spurs were up in arms over it because Arsenal had got the game postponed on the basis of one case, Martin Odegaard.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like now injuries have become the thing as well that can get you over the line in terms of getting postponed by the looks of things. Exactly.
Or lads off the AFCON. Again, you knew they were AFCON when you bought them. You knew they were going to go away a couple of times. That, you know, it's ridiculous. There's no way the Arsenal game should have been called off at the weekend.
Yeah,
absolutely no way. Spurs are 100% right to be fuming over it. I'd be raging myself.
And now we're hearing tonight about the Burnley game tomorrow. A man, Sean Dyche, who not so long ago told Jurgen Klopp to shut up and get on with it, is looking for a postponement because apparently he only has 10 first-team players in training.
Yeah.
So
you see, I just think that's so much more believable though, coming from Burnley, whose squad is probably a third of the size of Arsenal's. So do you know what I mean? Like, if he's telling me he's only got 10 fit and it's because of COVID, I would hasten to almost believe him. But like, the Arsenal situation was laughable, absolutely laughable. To think that there was, you know, they were counting Aubameyang and Thomas Partey and the lads that weren't available. Yeah, they're playing in a bleeding competition on the other side of the world.
Well, one of them is. The other one apparently is. The other one apparently is on the way back.
For unknown reasons.
Which will break Arteta's heart, because Arteta was hoping he'd be gone for. Arteta was hoping that Gabon would probably
never
win
come back.
Yeah, that they'd win it.
And he'd party until bleeding July.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's something that the FA are going to have to look at here, because there's a bit of leveraging going on, you know. And there's talk now that Arsenal are potentially applying to have the second leg of the Carabao Cup postponed. I was reading that today as well, the one on Thursday. I don't know what they do then in that situation. You know, I know we had it postponed, so we ended up then we had to play the first leg at Anfield, so the second leg would be at the Emirates. And now that's not going to happen.
Did they give you the second leg at Anfield again?
That's what I'm thinking. Does it boomerang back again, or what happens, or where do we fit these in? I mean, I'm looking at the moment with these postponements. Some of these teams are actually nearly 4 matches behind.
Burnley, by the end of this, could be 6 behind. Six games behind.
Where are they going to catch this up?
I have no idea. And depending on the teams they have to play, who might be involved in a cup competition in Europe. Like, this is going to be an A1, grade A shit show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but we'll keep a close eye on it. But at the moment, it seems that whoever's reviewing this situation are very sympathetic to situations at the moment. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when the actual report is being submitted to see actually what's in it, the justification for this and stuff, you know. I want to finish up with the man behind you there, Ralph Rangnick. I wanted to have a chat about him in terms of, I know we had some words earlier today on the thumbnail.
Are we having a chat about Ralph for a change, is it?
Yeah, we'll have a quick chat about it, but I wanted it to be more than just him, because there seems to be a section of the United fan base now that are discussing Ralph, and there's talk coming out today that apparently a new manager might be arriving sooner rather than later. So I wanted to get your views on it, get a balanced view on it, if you like, in terms of what's been coming out. I mean, we've seen the interview with Ronaldo saying that he's trying to pass on. When he was first at United, he used to go to the senior players. They would give him great advice that stood to him throughout his career. And he feels at the moment now that the advice that he's given to what he calls the younger players there, and I'm not sure at 37 who the younger players are. I mean, it's probably not Cavani, but it could include everyone else. And they don't seem to be taking his, let's say, his information on board from his experience. Then we had the Martial stuff, where Ralph said he didn't want to play, and Martial said, I'd never refuse to play for my club.
Which we also know is an absolute spoof, by the way.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like it was a looseness.
In 2018, he went AWOL on the United pre-season tour and was fine for it. Yeah. So him saying I refuse to play for the club and blah de blah is absolute, total and utter bullshit. It's only bullshit similar in grade to the bullshit that is fucking agent peddles. Another joker. Like, I thought Heath Ledger was dead. We've a bleeding joker here, fucking scandalising our club. Get out of town, you two smurfs.
Well, what I really picked up on when they were talking about it was Ralph turned around and said he didn't want to be in the squad. And Martial came out and said, I'd never refuse to play for my club. So somewhere between the playing squad and the starting 11, there was a kind of a mismatch. So I got the feeling from the story, and it obviously has to be clarified. I got the feeling from the story was Ralph obviously approached him, said he wanted him in the squad. Martial turned around to Ralph and said, well, are you going to start me? And Ralph said, no, you'd be in the squad. And he says, well, you can fuck off to Aston Villa then on your own, then I'm not having it. And so that's what it sounded like to me on the outside.
So he's now too big to play for Manchester United. He is too great and too powerful. Hold on when we get that Uber driver ready, will you? I'll tip him me fucking self. Get out.
The app is on your phone.
Get out of our club, you little degenerate swine. Get out.
Now, also the other thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of Ralph, the other night we seen against Aston Villa a midfield that was kind of wilting and running out of energy and stuff like that. And the substitutions were made kind of very late. And this seems to be a thing. This seems to be a trend, because when we talk about Ralph, there's a kind of a connection there with Tuchel, and there's kind of a connection there with Klopp. And we've also seen this. We've seen it in game management as well with Tuchel, where he makes changes very, very late. We've seen it in the City game this weekend. And we've also seen it with Klopp as well. We've seen it earlier in the season when he was playing against Brentford and we drew 3-3 with them, that his substitutions were made very late and his in-game management wasn't what it should be. So it's kind of a little bit of a pattern that, like, I'll make do what I have and see what happens, and then all of a sudden you're in the shit and you go, oh,
fuck. Excuse me. Yeah, like, I think anyone that watched the game and thought Nemanja Matic was going to get 90 minutes under his belt, you know, that would have been a shock to most of us. So, you know,
would have been a shock to Matic.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, when you got into that position, that was surely the time to bring the fresh legs on and to try and keep control of the tempo, rather than wait until it goes 2-1 and the snowball is already building pace. And now you've got this monstrous wave coming, and it's just gonna take you over by the head and wash you out to sea. And that's what happened. You know, like that change need to be made earlier. I saw Ralph talk about last week in the FA Cup game and stuff like that, and he said when they went with Diamond with Donny, they were much, much better. So if he knew that, why did it take so long to see Donny? Was it because what he did worked and he went, no, I don't need to look at that again now. This worked, we're grand. I mean, surely there was merits to say, we're 2-0 up. Let's try and shore this up. Let's take off a couple. Let's put on another centre back, and go to a 5, take out one of the boys down midfield, let the lads all sit back and create a couple of banks. Wouldn't have worked for the last 15 minutes? I think it might have,
Absolutely.
But instead, we're still trying to pick the ball up high up the pitch and trying to nick the ball and stuff like that, which left space in behind. Like the goal for Coutinho, possibly 3 lads who should cut that ball out before it hits the back of the net. I feel like Dalot was done up like a kipper. He was turned inside out with the ball. He had to look around and he went, shit. The ball comes across. You think Varane is going to clear it. And as it goes by him, he grimaces and goes, oh no, as if I should have got that. And then I got even to the point where he's inside the 6-yard box and he's not getting into the goal. Where's your goalkeeper?
Yeah.
So you're looking at Dalot, Varane, and David De Gea, and that's not even counting the ball that we gave away to give them possession in the first place.
Yeah. And just 2 other points I wanted to touch on as well. One is, I mean, obviously with personnel at the moment, we know Donny van de Beek was offered up as a loan move to Newcastle and he turned it down. And also we're hearing today that Bruno Fernandes has turned down a new contract. Apparently I was reading today. And it's kind of interesting as well in terms of the dynamic. I mean, this is the guy who's in situ for 6 months, who's kind of bring in a kind of a system or systems or figure it out where it's at before he goes upstairs and becomes the director of football. But it's interesting insofar as that you're halfway through a transfer window, and it's identifiable kind of what's needed to push on and maybe get that top 4, because him going up into that job and you guys not having top 4 or European football or whatever is a kind of, it's a double-edged sword really, isn't it? And in terms of, I know there's a bloated squad there as well, somewhat. So some players need to be moved on as well. But I mean, what you're thinking around that whole thing at the moment? I mean, they don't seem to want to give him. I mean, Zakaria seems to be available, and I know you mentioned the other day 5 million is kind of insulting. And there's talk today that 6 or 7 has gone in or something like that. But it's they don't. Is there a lack of support there at the moment? Is this a kind of a moment in Man United's season where it's a suck it and see? Let's see what this guy is about. Is this guy nearly on trial before
Absolutely.
that happens? Or
absolutely, yeah. And I think if the board look at it and they've supported an awful lot of the managers financially, to massive tunes. Solskjaer, Mourinho, and Louis van Gaal were given absolute war chests.
Yeah.
And signed a lot of big money players and stuff like that. And if you look at the squad now, you kind of think, where was that money spent? This squad is in a shambles, So you'd have to ask the question, do you give more money out? Do you hand it out willy-nilly? Or do you want to see a return on your investment first and know that you've got a coach who can get more from these players? Which is kind of akin to what I spoke about earlier on at Wolves. I think Wolves have been relatively prudent as well. But I think if you look at what Bruno Lage has done at Wolves, you see the style that they're playing and the games that they're playing and the results, the way they're going for them. Like if I'm on the Wolves board, I'm absolutely turning around now and saying, all right, well, this guy has shown us an awful lot. Now it's time for us to back him. Whereas I think that's very, very difficult to happen at United at the minute because, we kind of gave Ralph the easier games, didn't we? To get in and get bet in and stuff like that.
You picked the timing.
We picked it. We thought, listen, Ralph's going to come in, going to win 6 on the bounce, going to throw us back up into 4th or 5th. In January, we'll pick up 1 or 2. He'll get us over the line. Doesn't look like that at the minute. It looks miles away from that at the minute. And I can't I can't help but think that if we were going a little bit better in the league and if the performances had looked a bit better, maybe they would decide, you know what, we'll open the wallet. But I think at the minute, the way things are, you know, he'll do well to get any backing from the board. I think obviously there's talks of Zakari, and then there's talk to the boy Amadou Haidara as well. Both similar kind of players, defensive midfielders, kind of going into that engine room at United. But I don't know. You'd have to know that this was something that the next manager was going to, you know, use and he was going to get the best out of as well. Because I mean, if we're talking about, let's say, Maurizio Pochettino or if we're talking about Eric Ten Hag, I suppose they're the two leading names in the frame for it at the minute. You know, if we sign one of these boys and they don't use them, it's more money down the drain, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's another name on that already inflated squad list.
Yeah, I think the thing about Ralph is I think he came in, and I think the project was probably sold to him insofar as these boys are lacking a bit of direction and a bit of tactical nous. Come in and give them a bit of tactical nous to kind of assess the squad. See where we can position lads, see what you can get out of this, give us an idea of what you need and stuff like that. But he's faced a tidal wave of absolute utter shite in terms of, you know, stories being leaked to the press, clicks within, you know, division within the squad, you know, a certain amount of hate towards Ronaldo. He's come in and, you know, members in there going, well, who's this Billy Big Bollocks who's come in kind of thing, and we're trying to do things here. Yeah. You know, youth being held back because older members are being pushed forward. You know, all the contractual stuff, trying to move players on. He's come into a whole torrent of stuff.
Absolutely.
That I'm sure he never felt was going to be there.
No, 100%. And like you said, I think he was sold a dummy, sold a red herring. He was told, you know, come in, get the best out of Pogba, Rashford, Sancho, you know, make Ronaldo and Cavani poor, you know, get Bruno out playing and do this and you know, and it hasn't worked at all so far, really, you know. And what's happened is he's actually uncovered more problems than solutions, really.
Yeah.
You know, and if you see obviously now where we've been linked ever so slightly with Antonio Rudiger, and knowing that he's got the deal on the table with Chelsea, and Chelsea don't want to pony up for him, and he's saying, well, I want X, Y, or Z if I'm going to sign up, and Ralph was looking there and he's going, well, Jesus, maybe we'll take this guy, you know. Again, I'm looking at him and going, surely to God, we're not going to let Ralph make all the decisions here. I completely understand that if we go in the director of football role and that direction, that Ralph is going to have more pull than maybe other guys have at the club, you know. But for him to make all the signings for a manager who then has to try and fit him into their selection process is very, very difficult. You know, the conversation has to be two-way. It has to be, I speak, you listen, you speak, I listen. We come to an arrangement here. We make lists, and you know, if we only make lists of 2 or 3, we get someone from that 1, 2, or 3. I think, as we spoke about previously, the issue with United has been that list's been too long, hasn't it? You know, that list was maybe 5 or 6 names long, and we were getting number 5 on that list. You're going, that's not quite what we wanted.
It's like as if you identify a piece in the jigsaw that's missing, and you put that piece in, and another piece falls out. And I think what we've seen in the Premier League, the one thing that we're finding the way football has evolved is that if you're going to play a system, you have to have all the pieces in the jigsaw for that system to work. And if one piece falls out, or one piece gets injured, or one piece ain't really doing it for you, or whatever it is, the system falls asunder. It's like when this guy talks about the press game, and we've spoken about it a number of times. If you don't have players at the quality to pull off the press, it falls asunder if only one is doing it or one isn't, or whatever it is. And I think this is the problem that's been at United. Like, you identify, okay, we might need a couple of attacking wingers, and you go out and you get them. And then suddenly you realise, well, we need a CDM. and suddenly you realise, oh shit, Maguire maybe isn't the player that we thought he was. So suddenly we need a defender. And then you're looking at Aaron Wan-Bissaka and you're going, yeah, well, he's great at defender, but he can't do anything going forward. So up that side is kind of a little bit light. So now that's not working out and we need that. And it just seems every time you put a piece into the jigsaw, another piece falls out of the jigsaw. And the system, because of that, then suffers and falls down. And I'm just wondering, is there a scenario where in 6 months' time, this guy doesn't go upstairs?
Possibly, yeah. Quite possibly.
I mean, are we talking in the summer that there could be a total clear out and a fresh start, a proper fresh start, a proper reset?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And we go with unknown guys, you know, younger guys, hungrier guys that necessarily aren't proven in the Premier League, but you know, you're buying prospects rather than buying, you know, ready-made products. Like we felt like we bought a ready-made product in Jadon Sancho. You know, and at the minute he's looked devoid of anything. He's had moments where he's looked like he was up to it, but I think more often than not he's looked like he wasn't.
Yeah, we've also found with Ralph being there as well that at times when you have found something that kind of works, the next week then it's changed. Yeah. And I know he obviously wants to have a look at different systems and different players and trying to do an assessment of things and stuff like that. But he's spinning a roulette wheel there, isn't he? Really?
When it's devaluing your opportunity to pick up points, it shouldn't, you know, because the end game for us has got to be points this season, unless this has all been written off backstage and someone said, Ralph, you know, finish 12th, we don't care. Once you weed out what we need, weed it out, and once you understand what we need going forward, and then your role will be to fill those positions and give a manager an opportunity to roll the dice next season at this. Yeah. Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know. I couldn't imagine that that's the idea, but listen, stranger things and all that.
It's a very interesting dynamic at the moment, isn't it? Because week on week, there's another shitstorm to be dealt with, and I wonder what Ralph is like in the background. You know what I mean? I don't get the feeling for him that he's that much of a lunatic, you know, like a Tuchel, where Tuchel would gut you like a fish or over something, or Klopp would absolutely hairdryer the head off you over something, you know what I mean? I don't know whether he's that guy, is he? Because as we know, like in terms of management, he hasn't been heavily involved. We know he's very good. He has a decent track record as a football director, bringing players in and stuff like that. I know, because I know he was directly responsible, I think, for Firmino at Hoffenheim before we bought him and everything and all. So I know he has a decent record.
And Joe Linton.
Joe. That's very harsh now.
I like Joe Linton. Puts it out there, kid.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think it's a very interesting dynamic at the moment, looking at United, the way things are unfolding, and it's it'll be interesting. To go on record, I still think you'll get top 4. I'm putting it out there because I do think, and I believe, like you, and you've said it before on shows, I do think things will come around. I think things will eventually have to click.
I think the only issue I have with that now is the finish line far enough in front of us. That's the only issue I'd have with that. You know, you don't want to be coming down the rail and realize you're only 2 steps from the end and you need 3 to get there. And that could be the issue with United. I firmly believe we're the best of the rest if you discard the top 3.
Yeah.
I firmly believe we're the best of the rest. We may not have shown it. People may not have seen it recently, but I do believe we are the best of what's out there. I believe we have the squad if somebody can get the tune out of them, if Ralph can get them to play a tune, when we get bodies back and stuff like that, you know, when we find a system that everyone's comfortable with, I think we can get the ball rolling. But I just don't want that line to come too soon and us not get up into that 4th spot because we started from too far back, you know?
Yeah, and in terms of Wednesday, your view on Wednesday, I mean, you've obviously Brentford on Wednesday.
Must win.
It's a must win, obviously. Well, every game from now on the run in is nearly a must win at this stage. But is he Do you reckon he'll stick with what he's saying, but just be more astute in his substitutions? Or do you think
so.
the likes of Ronaldo, Maguire, and players like that and Rashford come back into the squad? Come back into the 11?
I'd be shocked if there's any more than 2 changes in that from that starting 11. One, I would think Scott McTominay will come back in for Nemanja Matic.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving one other in case somebody goes down with a sickness or something. Any more than 2 changes, I'd be shocked. I'd be really shocked.
Well, here's one I want you to answer. Maguire. Does Maguire come back in?
Not for me.
But does he come back in for him?
I don't think so.
I'd be shocked if Maguire doesn't start on Wednesday. Based on what I've seen previously, I'd be shocked.
I don't know.
And you know, I think it would lay down a statement.
I don't think he can bring it back in after, you know. I don't think the 2 boys were awful at the weekend, you know. I'd be shocked to see him come back, if I'm honest. I don't think he fans at all, because I think he wants 2 guys that can move, and I think he knows straight away Harry can't move.
Yeah, no, interesting.
We shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you will be seeing us more this week. Of course, we'll be back. We'll have the transfer show coming at you. We'll also have some reactions to some of the bigger games and stuff like that. We'll also be back with our Premier League preview for the weekend. Some great fixtures coming up next weekend. And we'll be back, of course, with Beat the Bookie to try and make you a few bob. Again, this weekend, we hit the bar a few times. But we will be, no doubt about it, we'll be back. We'll also be releasing more episodes from the vault. We released one there today, a Legend series with Roy Keane. And we also released an interview we did with Darren Wearmount, who's a avid Sunderland fan and a prize-winning author, and also a friend from Impractical Jokers. So a good episode there to take a look at. He talks about being a boy on the terraces at Sunderland and stuff like that, and talking about Roker Park and everything. So very, very interesting look back at Sunderland. And he also has a chat with us about the series Sunderland Till I Die. So very interesting ideas.
Good series. I enjoyed it, I have to say.
Yeah, really, really good. So as always, this has been your Monday mashup with myself and Darren. Interesting look back at the weekend's action and some of the hot topics. If you want to contact the show, of course, drop your comments in the episode. Obviously, hit a like and subscribe while you're doing it. If you want to email the show, theuppertierpodcast@gmail.com. On Twitter, @the_upper_tier. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and audio versions of the show are wherever you pick up audio shows, you will find us. And not to forget about TikTok. We're out there on TikTok having a lot of fun. A lot of fans interacting with us out there at the moment on some of the stuff that we're putting up there. Till next time, my friend, a pleasure.
How you doing, brother?